The infinity loop is the tools of communication that heals and glues society back together. So many of us, in which we've told ourselves we can't help how we think or behave because our brains are so wired to react from low-level consciousness that's habitual and automatic. We're coming from our egos where they're running the show and not the infinity loop, where the ego is in a helpful place as a healthy sense of self, so it can help us be in our connected, abundant selves. We're saying by intentionally stepping into the infinity loop, we can affect every interaction we have and change the world. The Infinity Loop Group podcast is going to be about moving from the either-or to both-and way of thinking, where we transcend and include, as Ken Wilber teaches, in which we transcend the limitations of the old masculine and old feminine, but include what is healthy and helpful. What will emerge is a new balanced and integrated masculinity and femininity. The time has come where the divine feminine way of being is going to arise. We must learn from it as we let our old ways die, so a new human is resurrected and transfigured. That new human will truly change the world. This podcast is also about having a growth mindset, which hungers to love well while practicing elegant and intelligent self-care. We face our wounds, egos, and shadows in preparation to give this life everything we've got to make the world more connected and beautiful, because we're more connected and beautiful.
Welcome to the Infinity Loop Group podcast. I'm Riley Burns.
And I'm Krista Vorse.
We're going to dive right into the Infinity Loop for women, how we find the divine feminine that's in all of us. Where we left off last with this chapter for all of us. I got a wonderful quote by Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world.
This book gives you tools to create the tribe you yearn for. Through shared language and intention, we're able to connect with those hungry to live this way. And when I mean shared language, I don't mean cultic language. It's understanding what does something mean to the other person and go, what do we mean by connection?
I'll say this a million times. It's changing how we communicate from projecting to connecting, not being in that gotcha model because of a word has some meaning. Where are you trying to catch someone and be right, or are you trying to connect, understand, and bring them in to your perspective?
Great. You're going to see how to take your weaknesses, your wounds, your shortcomings, your mistakes, your suffering, and turn them into superpowers. That's not ooey gooey. That's like real. That's some real shit. That happens.
Well, it's what when people go, oh, we wish we had the relationship you have, and you go
when they're talking about us,
right? And
we get that all the time. People talk about a relationship, yeah,
and it goes. They think it just magically happened, right? As if we just have always gotten along hunky-dory, never had any problems, and realizing it came from acknowledging our shortcomings, acknowledging our mistakes, being willing to be humble to each other's perspective and hear each other out, and having the respect to know that both our lives are better with each other in it. Because we know what it's like to not have each other in each other's lives.
Yeah. And that is the cycle of death and resurrection. It is that everything in life is ultimately, in my view, it is always an invitation. It's the infinity loop view. It's most spiritual practice view. I think is that it's always about our inner work.
Well, our inner work is shown in our outer life.
Yeah.
Right? That's when they say, be the change you want to see in the world, because when you become the change inside of you, it is projected in every interaction that you go out, and it creates that world that you want to see.
Yeah. And I just, this is such a challenge because many people just don't believe that their shortcomings could be turned into superpowers. I mean, strengths that I have today are, I think about myself and I don't even know how many years before I go, you would never see who that person was then can do what I can do now.
Well, and how many people don't think other people can change? Right?
Right.
Like they don't think they can change or other people can change. So this is very much the opposite of that narrative. The phrase of once a cheater, always a cheater. Once a liar, always a liar. No, that's not
That's
true.
actually not true. No,
Right.
because that is the death and resurrection. That is, people transform.
And usually it's from being held accountable, but not being held accountable in the sense of I'm trying to catch you in something wrong, but being accountable in the place of I have made those mistakes before too, and I love you and want to help you. That's where our accountability comes from. Not from a place I'm better than, but from a place of I've made that mistake too.
And then you just said something again. I just like, based on what you just said, that was like so important about why somebody changes. Oh, like why do they change? And Richard Rohr again, who I consider my spiritual father, a Franciscan priest who has the Center for Action and Contemplation, says, great love and great suffering are usually the two things that cause us to change.
Right. I mean, it's when you're suffering the most and others show you love.
Or you're suffering, like I could say, I was so sick and tired. I was so sick of myself.
Well, that because most of our suffering is because of our own actions, not from other people.
Yeah, or where the pain that has happened, like the pain that could have been done to me because of someone's truly narcissistic abuse, that I am truly fragmented from.
Well, how do you transcend that
How,
trauma,
yeah,
not stay the victim, right?
yeah, and how do I, yeah, and that is absolutely what I believe, that there is a humility that we will walk with for the rest of our lives. We may have challenges, we have things to overcome, but they were all ultimately turn into superpowers, because if we dissolve into love, that is the ultimate superpower.
Because then they become the tools, techniques, and disciplines.
Yeah, I'll give you tools, techniques, and disciplines to make these powers into reality in the world and to show up in your highest, best, and most powerful self. When we change ourselves, we can change the world around us. As the Nobel Prize winning theoretical, I'm sorry, I don't know how to.
Theoretical physicist.
Thank you. Theoretical physicist, of course. Max Planck says, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Well, and that
is proven.
Well, with the quantum mechanics stuff is really showing back in the last chapter where we talked about thinking about things that are impossible. We're already finding out what we used to think was impossible is becoming possible because of things like quantum mechanics. And that is, everything about quantum mechanics is about how
the observer
effect,
yeah.
Right? And so this is exactly that. When we have an intentional view on things, we are immediately changing it's perspective. Like, one of my favorite things is once you create the environment to feel safe, that you can bring up things that are bothering you. I find a lot of things that bother us only bother us when we are unable to express it. Because so many things, it's like, yeah, it's not really that big of a deal, but it can become a big deal if you don't feel like you can express it. But by creating that safe space of being able to get it off your chest, things don't fester.
Being able to be honest,
Right,
and transparent and vulnerable.
And creating that environment for constant change.
Yeah, constant growth, constant. This is what I'm. Yeah, and the way you look at, when you look at the way you, this whole thing is, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. That would be when we look upon ourselves, the world, another, through what would be considered divine union, through infinity loop eyes, through what love would look like. That changes people.
Well, because they feel the love.
They feel the love.
They don't feel shamed for their mistake. They feel
That is
like,
a
oh, I
force.
can change.
That's a Wonder Woman, Jedi Master, whatever you want to use it. That is a powerful, powerful force, the most powerful force in the world. We have to stop being victims, and that's what this is about. We are the choreographers and orchestrators of our lives. We are co-creators. When we're able to disidentify with the ego's obsession with unworthiness, then we're free to be our most powerful and loving self. That is a heavy saying. Actually, that came, my former partner, Leo, business partner, consultant partner, life partner, he actually said that, and I thought, that's it. The ego is just naturally insecure, and we don't make the ego, we have compassion upon the ego, the confused little ego, but that part of us feeling like we are a victim and that we are not the co-creators of our lives, that we don't have the power to take care of ourselves in an elegant and intelligent way. And it's that victim that really just comes out and messes everything up.
Well, for me, the phrase that changed it for me was, I believe the universe is working in my best interest even when I'm not. And so what that means is that I can never be a victim, because that means no matter what is happening to me, the universe is doing it to make me a better person. Whether it's a challenge that I need to rise to, whether it's some suffering that I need to endure because I gave others suffering, and it's a natural reflection that I need to go through. But no matter what I am through in the rest of my life, and I'm sure it will get tested, I don't believe I can ever be a victim again with that belief. If I believe the universe is working in my best interest, even when I'm not, well, then I can never be a victim.
And we are not saying, I would say almost like as that people are not victimized, by abuse. It's a different, it's the both and, right? It's
you
not
can
that
be
you're
a victim of someone's narcissism or terrible acts. You don't have to be a victim, right? You can be a victim of an action, does not mean it has to identify you.
That's good. Yeah, and that unworthiness, that because the ego is always insufficient. It's never enough, and so everything it has to do to compensate in the false self, to separate ourselves from others, to go, oh, am I okay now? I'm okay. Well, at least I'm better than them. It's the opposite of abundance.
When you come from lack, you seek control.
Yeah.
And when we try and control the things that are uncontrollable, like everybody else, we are actually causing suffering on others, right? Like that's when we become the abuser.
Mm-hmm. And I'm forgetting his name right now, but I think I put the quote in the book. Yeah, it's like the moment we seek to control, we cease to love. He was a Catholic priest, and I'm forgetting his, and that is really interesting.
That's beautiful. I think that's ultimately what I was trying to say about that ego's obsession to be unworthiness and free of the most powerful loving self.
Mm-hmm. The Infinity Loop shows you how to be the change you want to see in the world. We can start being that change right now.
Amen. Wonderful. We're going to go over a song that we put in this chapter, The Bird Set Free by Sia.
Mm-hmm. Clipped wings, I was a broken thing. Had a voice, but I could not sing. You would wind me down. I struggled on the ground. Oh, so lost, the line had been crossed. Had a voice, but I could not talk. You held me down. I struggle to fly now. Oh, but there's a scream inside that we all try to hide. We hold on so tight, we cannot deny. Eats us alive, oh, it eats us alive. Oh, yes, there's a scream inside that we all try to hide. We hold on so tight, but I don't want to die. No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Yea, I don't care if I sing off key. I find myself in my melodies. I sing for love. I sing for me. I shout it out like a bird set free. No, I don't care if I sing off key. I find myself in my melodies. I sing for love. I sing for me. I'll shout it out like a bird set free. I'll shout it out like a bird set free. I'll shout it out like a bird set free. Now I fly, hit the high notes. I have a voice, hear me roar tonight. You held me down, but I fought back loud. Today I sobbed for all women whose fire has been dampened. Right before the movie Wonder Woman came out, I had a vision of being goo on the pavement, rising up with my roar into who I am, a phoenix from the ashes. I fought back to live. I am alive and a bird set free from all that held me down, including myself. May this be true for you. I hope Sia's song gives you strength when life knocks you down. So, wow. You encouraged me to read that. So.
Well, it's about, for us, how that would apply with the Infinity Loop is when you step into these tools of communication, you are able to be set free, right? You are able to sing, and you don't worry about singing off key. Singing could be just as much of communicating how you're feeling about something, not feeling the need to suppress things, to feeling the sense of loving yourself and not needing to be dampened by other people's negativity.
Or control, or again, narcissistic tendencies where, for me, I just look at my patterns that are very humbling, where I have not used my voice, or where I have given someone too much space to dominate, and where you're almost like goo. You're like, holy crap, this is not good to be around.
Well, I think that's why this next chapter is so important, because you really need to step into your own Wonder Woman, Superman, whatever, to be the person set free.
And I would
say, to be set free, you must step into your warrior.
Yeah, and to find that. And I just think this also for men, because I love men so much. I have so many positive, I just love the masculine. I love the masculine. I love what it does in the world. I have more male clients than female clients that even read a book that says, for women. And I think it's because they feel, understood. But how men have struggled to find their voice, to either more, insecure, dominating, downloading men who try to control, or with women. How do we find our voice? And every time we feel like we can't speak up because we don't have the skill, we're in shock, we don't want to hurt others, we just don't know how to both love well while practicing elegant and intelligent self-care. Every time we don't do that, it's like we're going into the cage.
We're not being the warrior.
We're being the warrior.
We're being Clark Kent, not Superman. We're choosing not to step into that phone booth to put on our armor and our tools or whatever, our suit, because we're feeling less than. And so I think this next chapter is a great place to go with stepping into being Wonder Woman. Only love can save this world, Diana Prince. And another great quote by Steve Jobs. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They are not fond of the rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, you can disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward, and while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And that is what we are trying to do with this wonderful podcast.
Wow. We women need a new way to be in the world that expands our capacity for awareness, and where we neither lose our power nor abuse our power.
Men also, it's power is actually such a beautiful thing and should be honored and respected, not something that is innate or destined for you. You should be grateful for the opportunity to have that power, but also humbled by the position of it. And that is where...
What do you mean innate?
Well, I guess in the old paradigm of where people think they
just get power,
right?
Like it's just given,
correct.
Versus, yeah.
Well, where the power corrupts, right? Where you feel like you deserve this power. No one deserves any power. This goes back to that we are all amazing human beings and superheroes, and we're also all need to be humbled and be willing to wash anyone's feet because we are not better than anyone else. And how do you have that from a position of power?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many, it's so interesting how stories in the Bible, no matter whatever you think about Jesus, if you see him as a spiritual teacher and just go, wow, what was he saying there? So many of his teachings have been misunderstood. And Richard Rohr would again say...
Or just manipulated, right?
Or manipulated. But they would say, oh God, I can't believe he said turn the other cheek or go for another mile. It's like, that's just... They didn't understand that Jesus was teaching from a position of your infinite self. Like that whole thing of forgive them for they know not what they do. That, he says, that would be cruel to think about that almost in the small self. But in the big self, it's like, the way I see it, it's like you're the eagle and you're so high up, the perspective you see, you're like, of course I can forgive this. And the point I was making, it's like when your master asks you to go a mile, you could go an extra mile. It's coming because you are so fit, you are so capable, you can go the extra mile. Yeah, and the point I'm making, like that power, it's like when you have the power of self-control, not repressing yourself, but self-control, power over yourself, power to influence because you are so skilled at connection, awareness, and inquiry that you can lead no matter what position you are in the room. You know, it's the company meeting, and your skill to ask the questions, even say, he who asks the questions is in control. The ability to bring data to the surface, to help people see what they're not seeing, to create learning, to go, what are the blind spots?
To have the humility even though you're in the position of power.
Or to have the power even if you're in a position that's kind of humble.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so and that's the learning. So it's like you go from the insecure self to the powerful self that's not even caring about what they think. I mean, so many times when I haven't spoken up, it was because I actually cared. Like someone could say something, let's just say it was super, let's just call it chauvinistic, okay? Like something really belittling. And I'm sitting there judging them, going, I cannot believe you just said that. But I'm not saying anything, going, you know, I'm just curious. You just said that comment. I'm curious why you said that. Am I coming off like this? That you would, do you think I wouldn't know that? Like there's a way of where you
Well, you're not triggered, so you're not then lashing out back at them, but you are being aware of how this misbehavior is being received, and you go humble of, oh, I don't need to be better than this person, and I need to just give them an opportunity to maybe adjust where they're coming at you from, right? It's let me ask the question, not in an accusatory way or a I know everything way, but let's, give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, but the part of you, this is why Wonder Woman, when I saw the movie Wonder Woman, and I still haven't seen the second one, I heard it wasn't very good, but I need to see it. It was so powerful to me because the courage to just move forward and go, I have the skill. No one else is going to go out and save those babies in no man's land. I'm gonna. And it's the courage to go, the fearful self goes, oh, if I speak up, what are they going to do to me? And the courage, the Wonder Woman, just goes through and passes through to the fearless self.
Being the buffalo, not the cow.
Being the buffalo, right? Because the cow, when the storm comes, they go the other direction.
Well, they run from the storm, which causes them to be in the storm much longer. And the buffalo that feels the storm, they both feel the storm coming. It's like in their hooves under the ground. And the buffalo chooses to run through the storm and spends half as much time dealing with the storm as the cows who run from the storm and get caught in it twice as long.
Oh, that's so good. Because you think about how many times if we're a cow and we don't move forward and go, hey,
but when we don't address our issues,
we're going to be
suffer.
Thinking about
we suffer for 10 times longer,
and we're up all night thinking about them.
Yep.
And then sometimes we think. Then I've seen people going, "Oh, what I should have said," and it's a way of putting them in their place and putting them down and getting our power instead of like, "Oh no,
it's like winning the argument without even having the conversation with them."
And you're trying to confront an old lady that may have dementia about your dog. You know, it's like, no. What if we realize we have power? We are connected. We have a power. We just use our voice and we come back again in connection, awareness, and inquiry. That is the most powerful self. Like it is about power. Power is, Carolyn Mace says that, a great spiritual teacher. It's like everything is about power. It's like when you know your power, because that is the infinite self.
When you're operating from that love, that power is about bringing the best version of someone else out, right? So when you're operating from that love, you then are bringing the best version of them out as well.
Yeah.
And that is the true power, because the power is the one who has the ability to change the environment. So I might be acting out, but if you have the power to transcend my temper tantrum, who has the real power, right? To me, I notice it with parenting. When you see a child having a temper tantrum and the kid and the parent adjusts to the kid, the kid continues to have temper tantrum. But when the parent refuses to adjust to the kid
in an unhealthy way.
Right, where I'm not saying
Right.
in abuse, it's like the kid's having a temper tantrum. Almost ignoring them a lot of times, they just tucker themselves out, they stop. It's almost as if it never happened. But you cater to that behavior, and then that behavior becomes a pattern. And I think just like babies, we're all always being conditioned by our environment. And so if people are always catering to our bad behavior, it becomes habits. And sometimes we don't even realize our bad behavior because it's been catered to so much.
I like to think, in the parenting that we do with Infinity Loop kids and the Tao, which is the adolescent opportunity, I go, think of it as the grandmother, the crone. And when her presence, she has so much power, she can just look at the little 6-year-old and go, yeah, we don't do that at the table, and they just feel that regalness of, as I like to say, the alpha woman. When she walks in the room, everyone knows everything's going to be okay. And that power, when someone comes at you, this is what I would say, is everything is an invitation. When anyone comes at you in a way that can almost knock you back on your heels, how do you rise up from goo on the pavement out of love and rise again? And
Being
just
a
go,
war-
being a
warrior of love,
Being a
not
warrior of
not a
love.
warrior of revenge, or not a
Yeah.
warrior of revenge, but a
And-
warrior of love.
Wow.
The old self.
Okay. The old self falls into habits that hinder us. Our desire is to emerge in our new self, free from lifelong reactions. And I think about the teaching is as soon, you cannot change anything until you become aware. And when you stop and go into inner stillness and connect first with yourself, your inner experience with the other person, you step into the infinity loop, you get self-awareness of what's going on in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your emotions, what's going on in the environment. Now you have options. But before then, you have no options to change. You create that habit, you can change. It's so...
To me, that's what you were complimenting earlier when you said
Yeah.
that's what because I feel like that
In the
is
last
exactly how
podcast.
I work on transcending the reactionary response for things that come up in my life or the emotions. It's how do you transcend the first reaction?
Because you're saying you create awareness.
Right.
And then you realize, I have another choice.
Well, it's going to the bigger picture, trying to pull back. And I also have other practices of like body practices with breathing exercises, with working out, with cold exposure. All these things, I think, go hand in hand
Creating the warrior.
with creating,
Yeah, that's freaking great.
our biggest challenge is, right?
Our desire, our new self stands in the infinity loop, humble, curious, and honest. We are then never the same. So the curiosity is the opposite of critical.
It's the opposite of ego, because the ego is always
Always.
operating from all-knowing. That's when people say, well, this is my perspective, as if their perspective is the ultimate truth.
Or they may not even say perspective. Yeah, I just think that they right.
I mean, yeah, a lot of time they don't, but sometimes, like, ultimately
I just think this. I just think this. Instead of going, I'm
or,
curious.
Or
yeah.
you make me feel this way, as if they're not responsible for their feelings, you're responsible for their feelings.
Yeah, I do have a hard time with that phrase. You make me feel this way, I think, because it's not accurate.
Right, but
you could say I'm experiencing.
It's so used.
When you're doing this behavior or whatever, I'm aware that I'm experiencing. It's really triggering. I feel unloved, or I feel insecure right now. I feel like you're not listening to me, and this is what I'm telling myself, you know?
Well, and especially saying it with that I'm feeling unloved because of this, and this, not you're making me feel unloved.
Yeah. That would
right?
be the shared
It's,
language. That's not an infinity loop
well, that's
practice.
trying to blame someone.
Yeah.
That's going back to being the victim.
It is going back to being the victim, not owning our experience.
So now I can lash out at you because you're making me feel this way.
Yeah, yeah. And Brene Brown has a great practice. It's like, this is what I saw. This is what I told myself. This is what happened. This is what I told myself. Tell me where I'm wrong. And I like, that's exactly the steps of dialogue. This is what happened. This is the story I told myself.
This is how it makes me feel. Then
yeah,
what?
When this is, so I told myself, and now I'm feeling like crap, whatever, tell me what am I not seeing? Where am I wrong? And it's this invitation again to say, no, I totally love you. I'm sorry, I was distracted, that kind of a thing.
Well, yeah, it's the both end of holding someone accountable and giving them the opportunity to rise to the occasion without shaming, blaming, accusing.
So one of the infinity loop principle is, whenever we're in critical, we can go to curious, because it is the opposite. And I just heard this about neuroscience. It's like, when you are in curiosity, you cannot be in anxiety.
Well,
Isn't that wild? You cannot be in those two states at the same time.
Well, that's what creates change, because change is when you put a question mark on things. When you're being critical, you're putting an exclamation point on things, which is very as if they are in stone. But when you go to curiosity and put a question mark on things, everything is up. Anything could change. Anything is up for debate. We're asking for more information. Yeah,
and that's the transcend and include piece. Is the first look is always critical. It's our survival brain. It compares, it competes, it's critical. It's, where's the danger? What's wrong? What's weird? What's not safe? Ooh, that's weird. And that is normal and okay. It's just a part of, but that is the first look. That's the ego defenses keeping us safe in this world. The second look, respect, to see again, actually that's what it means, re-see, spectacles, is stepping in, and it's going, I can still hold my disturbance about that, and I can look again.
So on point.
So yeah, so that's the curious. It's like, oh, that's the connected self that's curious. That's the abundant self, the whole self that is in all of us. Our biggest challenges to this new way are the old patterns and our egos when they're not in service. We'll go through our own heroines' or hero's journey as we die to our identities, our small identities, and are reborn into our essence with a capital E. That would be the nothingness that we talked about in the last chapter. The nothingness that is actually holds the whole universe, but it feels like nothingness because it's spaciousness, because the ego mind is not chattering all the time going, oh, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is my past, this is my future, this is how I identify with myself. It's just presence.
Well, it's being present, right? There's an energy when you're around someone that is being present, right? You feel heard. The energy is almost higher, like there's an energetic feeling in the room, in the conversation, because someone is being present, because they aren't worrying about their identity. They aren't worried about how they're projecting onto someone or how they're being received. They're just worried about being right here, right now, hearing you, being heard, and
hearing,
and I think that is what the infinity loop helps us do.
That's what I call the bounce, meaning when we go through our own hero's journey as we die to our small identities and are reborn into our essence, which our big identity, which would be love. We change identities from the small ego container to who we ultimately are. We're taking our weaknesses and our wounds and making them our strength and our superpower. When we move to essence, it all transmutes into our superpowers.
Well, it's like with the small self needs to define itself to make itself big. The true self is so big that it doesn't need defining, right? And that's the difference. When you are in your small self, you need to go, I am this. This is my personality. These are all these things that define me, to almost become bigger, because that is that ego. That's that feeding the individual. But when you are your true essence self, you know you are attached to the abundance. You know you are everything and all at once. So there is no need to define you, because even the defining, when they're trying to make you big, they're actually making themselves small. And lack of definition is what makes you way bigger than any labeling could ever make you.
That's the whole concept of narcissism, right? It's that it's overcompensating for how insecure and small they are. You know, I would say I was aware, and that was where my suffering. I have been aware my whole life of when I was trying to make myself big, where I was overcompensating. Like I could feel it. I just didn't know how to find my true self until, the mystics really taught me in such a season of, again, I would call it ego death, of just going, I'm either going to figure this out or I'm just going to die because of my own pain. But I was aware, I could feel it. I can feel when I'm like trying to define myself by my small self because I'm insecure.
So my best awareness of that is when someone made it aware to me, in the sense of they said how smart I was and felt that I had to overtalk to share how smart I was. And he's like, you're so smart, you don't need to be trying so hard to share how smart you are.
You are smart.
And I think, but I think that was happening from my insecurity. And I guess I didn't have the awareness of it until someone I respected enough kind of pointed that out. And how they pointed it out, of going, you are smart, you don't need, was that kind of loving push to where I try and be aware of that and be practicing of, I love sharing information and having deep conversations, but I don't always need to be the one talking. And sometimes my own talking can be coming from my insecurity, and I just, how you become aware of that, how that just changes. And I find once I changed that, it made me a better listener too. Because you know what really is smart is when someone understands what you said. And for them to understand what you said, they have to listen. And if you're always worried about adding your 2 cents, you're probably not listening.
Yeah.
Right? Like for me, I mean, at least for myself, I know when I was always so excited about needing to share my next tidbit, I was taking myself out of the moment and not listening. I would listen to highlighted words maybe for responses, but I wasn't truly receiving the message that someone was giving me.
So you were less present. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you become, with this awareness, you become more present, you're a better listener, all in the infinity loop, and it creates this energy.
Right. When you feel like you have the tools, and also you go, oh, I do. There's my infinite self. There's the field that belongs to all of us. That's essence. That is that part of me. I mean, and that's the deep sadness, or could say a healthy regret, is where I overcompensated from a young age because of not having a healthy enough ego container or whatever, that I was just, all the things I was doing to feel okay, and how that hurt people and myself, and how much better it is on the other side where I'm able to go, oh, there she is again. I know how to come back to her more often than ever before.
Amen.
Okay. It's the truest part of us that we find in the infinity loop. We stop being a winner or loser. Love wins.
Well, when you realize that you've been in someone else's position before, now it is no longer a win or loss situation, but a win-win, right?
Yeah, like I caught myself today. It's like when that competition of being, because I can be very fast on my feet and so can you. And I think that's a kind of a family, like that sword, I can be fast. And I caught myself kind of winning. I was like out of love. And I was like, oh, and I needed to come back into empathy and adjust where I was just almost catching them in an air. It wasn't loving.
Well, and then there's that ego hit that we get.
Yeah, and
feels
I felt
it feels good to be right. It feels good to kind of put someone in their place in a way, in a weird way.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. I believe all our actions are always a snowball, whether they're positive or negative. They snowball in directions, and so it's as we slip in one pattern, it becomes easier in one way. And that's why it's so important to have these tools to catch ourselves,
to drop back in,
to start snowballing in the other direction.
Yeah, and that's really the point. So you get so many points of truth, so many tools, so many techniques that it brings you back faster and faster and faster, so you don't snowball. That you're able to catch yourself as you're rolling down the hill.
Well, it's using the snowball and the light. Well, because you spark your flame, and when you are the fire and the light, you melting the snowball.
That's right, yeah.
It's like
that's good.
You right then there is no, because then you're in control. If you have the fire going, there is no snowball rolling in a direction because you're around the flame and the flame's inside of you.
When we realize we're in this together, we build bridges. We're emotionally honest. We're connected to our hearts that care. There are those who cannot enter the infinity loop because they will not change. That is also true. But most aren't beyond hope. Many are trapped by their unconsciousness and how they've learned to protect their egos.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen in our lives how there's been people we thought couldn't change, but by showing up consistently for them, and by us being in the infinity loop, we've created the environment for them to change.
Yeah, like I needed to up level for them to change. Like I needed to find a deeper well. I needed to come from more of my abundant self. I needed to heal my own whatever trauma that was causing me to split from my pain. I needed a greater capacity to love.
It's leading by example, not judging and projecting in their timeline as if someone needs to change on your timeline, right? Like that, to me, I think that's holding humility in that space too, of going, we are all on our own journey of change.
Love will kill us. We will be killed by love. The parts of, right?
It kills us and sets us free.
Yeah, it is. We resurrect again. Many are trapped. Okay, that's why they need Wonder Woman to save the day.
But Wonder Woman's inside of you.
The Wonder Woman that's inside of you, if they're unconscious. What the infinite provides is an understanding that that's why we're here in this life, in this time and place. It's the understanding that we are all Wonder Woman or Superman. May this book help you discover the truth deep within yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Infinity Loop Group podcast. Till next time, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.